Good afternoon, everyone. Futures Brizio here. It is Tuesday, June 9th, 2026, just after 5 p.m. New York City time. Hope everybody's having a good week so far. And we're just going to, as usual, just jump in, do a little quick market wrap on the day in futures and take a quick look at some Forex pairs, but probably won't spend too much time there. Nothing's really changed in terms of kind of recent tweaks to the currency strength index trading. But we will do a quick update. So, as always, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Uh, Before we get started, and any questions or comments, leave them down below. Super appreciate it. And happy coffee afternoon here at 5 o'clock. Day went by pretty quick today. I was on the charts for a couple hours this morning, and then I left around midday. Got back a couple hours ago. Um, so obviously with the grain markets, as I've talked about many times, you have to kind of strike on those. If there's going to be a trade, it's going to be like pretty much near the open, because they're only open for a limited time. And so I did take two trades today in grains. One was a winner, one was a loser, but still was positive by about $210 for the day, even accounting for the loser. Okay. So let's just jump right in and we'll take a look. This is the winning trade. I took, you can see I took two contracts on soybean meal. And you can see I took this actually during the pre market at 8 o'clock. Well, I don't know if this is an hourly chart, but somewhere between 8 and 9 o'clock, I entered this trade. And you can see why, again, we're just continuing this downtrend. We had this nice pullback. We started painting this big engulfing candle. And I'm a little hesitant sometime about jumping in pre-market because we can see some false moves and then see the market reverse at the actual Chicago Open at 9:30. But in this case, it did not today, which was great. So it was a little bit risky just because of the time I took it, but I still felt pretty comfortable just based on, again, the trend. And you can see we saw a nice pullback into the moving averages, just broke the 34 a little bit, but certainly nowhere near the market structure break, which is sitting way up here prior to the open. And of course, now I've moved that down to this new swing that it put in today. And you can see this was the exit. It did go a tiny bit further after that. But like I said, I closed it before I left the house today. I didn't want to leave it because I knew I wasn't going to be home before the close. And so I just exited at that point. And so as far as tomorrow goes, you can see the arrows there. So it's just kind of my own thoughts. If there's going to be a trade tomorrow, then we'll see something like this, some sort of corrective move up tonight during the overnight session. And if we're, anywhere back, as long as we stay below this swing, this is the 1 hour chart, by the way. As long as we stay below this swing, but we get some kind of a decent pullback into or around the moving averages, then that'll be a potential setup for tomorrow. Okay. So we take a quick peek on the higher time frame. It looks like we do still have some more downside to go. I would say overall, I would say this low back here is probably kind of like the next target in terms of where price might run into some resistance or support, actually. And if we get through that, then we've got this low down here. This is probably a more important one with this big wick. So either way, price still has, I think, some floor to go through in terms of price action. So I will still looking for short setups on this asset. All right. So as far as other things that we might see tomorrow, so here is wheat, and we saw a late sell-off in wheat, heading into the close today. This is the 4 hour chart. If we go to the 1 hour, we did see price kind of drift a little bit lower into the late session, but again, I just don't take trades in these grain markets in the afternoon. Again, these markets close at like 2:20 in the afternoon. And so, I wasn't going to trade it then. And, I would like to see it obviously break these moving averages to the downside. You can see I do have a price alert sitting here. And we'll see. So on the 4 hour chart, it looks like a good potential setup coming. We do have our previous swing high way up here on the 4 hour. And so we'll see if this ends up being corrective and we get a break lower. Now, this downtrend could, if we're going to get another low, it could happen during the New York, the overnight session tonight. Sometimes they do move during that, overnight London type, European session. So that could happen, in which case we might not get a trade tomorrow. But if we continue to chop around, or even if we go a little bit higher, if we bounce again and go even higher, as long as we don't take out this previous swing up here, that still potentially sets us up for a short tomorrow. Although I wouldn't necessarily want to see it go much higher than that. But right now, um, it's still in a downtrend, and I'm still looking for shorts on pullbacks here. Okay. So for corn, it's kind of the same situation. Again, on the 4-hour chart, we've now pulled back into the moving average. We did make an attempt to go lower again, similar to wheat towards the late session, but never got anywhere. So again, I'd like to see this break below the moving averages. And again, that could happen overnight, but if not, then tomorrow, I'll be looking for some sort of bearish setup tomorrow. Even if price goes a little bit higher tonight, that would be okay. We're still nowhere near our previous swing, which is a little bit harder to see in this asset, but it's probably like something like that. And or if you want to be more conservative down here, but either way, we're not near that. And so again, still bearish in this market. We are sitting at a previous low right here. Is probably why we had some bounce off here. You can see this previous low sitting over here. And then we've got another batch of lows sitting here, which price did try to spike through here. So this one, is there's a little bit more nearby support on the higher time frame that we at least be aware of. It doesn't mean it's going to reverse from either one of these levels, but that is definitely a reason why we saw price get held up here and then try to spike down to this level, because anybody that was in short positions is probably using those as their take profit levels, and anyone that's trying to catch a reversal is probably trying to buy off these levels. So that's going to cause that. So but and we do have this gap, which is still quite a ways away. We have this big gap that was put in back last summer right here. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to push lower, though this gap is really old. I know people say gaps do eventually get filled, but I mean, this is a gap that's coming up on a year old. So I'm not sure how much weight you can really put in that now. But again, it could just be a target for people if nothing else. Um, all right, so on to soybeans. This was the losing trade today. And you can see, again, I went short around the same time. This one I actually took right around the market open. And I felt like, again, we were in a downtrending market. I wasn't overly thrilled about this one, to be honest. My spidey senses were a little bit leery on this one, which is why I only took one contract. Turned out to be a good move because that saved me from having a red day. And I did get stopped out on it. You can see I got in here and got stopped out on this next candle right here on this little spike. And I had my stop loss just above the moving average and did get taken out. And you can see that was probably, for what it's worth, the market just went sideways the rest of the day. And the reason why I wasn't too thrilled about it in the first place is because, we did put in this low, a new low yesterday. Well, I wouldn't even call it a new low. We came back to previous lows right here from Friday. Like we had this area in here from last Friday. We drifted lower. And then we came back on Monday, yesterday, came back just the previous low. We did not put in a new low. So that, and then I kind of saw a pretty weak bounce. It was back into the moving averages. So that's why I took it. But I wasn't overly thrilled because there didn't seem to be a lot of selling pressure at these levels. And again, that turned out to be the case. Though, again, looking at the daily chart, I do feel, looking at this daily chart, we will eventually push lower. It's just a matter of, I think we need maybe a bigger pullback. So I'm still bearish on soybeans just technically, but, I would like to see here, we're back on the 4-hour now, to see, some sort of push back towards the moving average, instead of just this choppy stuff. If we're still chopping sideways tomorrow, within this like range right here, then it's highly unlikely I would take a trade. But if we get a bounce and we get a pullback a little bit overnight, then they'll be more primed for a setup. All right. And already talked about soybean meal. Soybean oil, on the other hand, this one's a little more tricky. If we go out to the daily chart on soybean oil, we see, we had this swing low that ran up to this new high. We had one, two, three, four. We had 5 straight days of rallying, and then we've sold off, come back to this previous low entry, and then we bounce. But you can see on the daily chart, the bounce was very weak. We had two basically, flat doji days. So even though, yes, they were bullish, they bounced off these lows. Doesn't seem to be a lot of buying pressure behind these two rallies when you go out to the daily chart. On the 4 hour chart, here was that high we made last week. Actually, this goes back 2 weeks ago, June 1st, we made this high, and then we've been going down. The moving averages have kind of rolled over a little bit, for what it's worth. Again, and here's that previous low that price kind of spiked into yesterday and then tried to rally, but you can see it's a pretty weak rally. And so are we beginning to, see a downtrend forming on this market? Maybe. And if it is, it would come in line with the rest of the soy complex, with soybeans and soybean meal, because this market has been kind of the outlier and running to the upside here since January, since the beginning of the year. We started this huge uptrend. Okay. So we'll see what happens. This is the hourly chart, which looks more bullish because, we were coming down. We failed to put in a new low yesterday. And then we had pretty bullish price action today, right before the open. This was basically the pre-market into the open. And then we kind of drifted lower the rest of the session, but we see we're still holding the moving average. So this one's going to have to kind of prove that it wants to go lower. I mean, the daily chart is still bullish, but it's not looking all that strong. We would definitely need to see some like strong bullish candles heading back up. We haven't had that in 2 days now. The 4 hour chart is looking relatively bearish. We've had the moving averages roll over. But we do still have this support level down here, which is held for looks like 4 or 5 times here over the last couple of weeks. So we'll have to see what that does. And the hourly chart looks pretty bullish. So we'll have to see what it ends up doing during the overnight. If we continue to go in here and put in new highs, or what happens. But even if it does put in new highs on the hour chart, it's highly unlikely it's going to should really change anything on the 4 hour chart. So this one probably just going to let it play out, but I'll see what it looks like tomorrow before the open. But I'm not going to try to second guess. I'll let the market tell me what it wants to do. Even though it is a soy product, it doesn't mean it's always going to go in line with soybeans and soybean meal. I mean, they're different. They're different commodities, and so different demand levels and as such. So we'll see what happens. Is it going to get in line and downtrend, start to just be a latecomer to the downtrend, or is this going to, continue up? So we'll see what it does during the overnight. And because this one, like I said, really depends what time frame you look on here. You're going to get a couple of different answers in terms of what direction. And so when I see that, I'm pretty much just going to put it aside and watch it if I'm not getting kind of confluence across at least 2 time frames. Then I'm just not going to do that. So, but again, we'll see what it looks like tomorrow. But again, either way, 2 trades today, small net profit, about $210 up for the day on the funded account. So that's good. We'll see how it plays out tomorrow. All right, so quickly on to Forex. Not going to go through all of these. One sec, guys. Okay, sorry about that. I had to pull over one of my screens here. So we need to change this template. I don't use the moving averages in Forex. I'm just using the CSI, and we'll let this populate. So again, we're Still using the 89 CSI, okay, which again is just a fib number. Um, and I'm using the 4 hour chart as my main um, analysis chart, okay, and entry chart. Well, between the 1 hour and the 4 hour for entry, kind of like I do with futures. But the 4 hour is kind of like the one I'm taking cues in terms of the CSI indicator. And of course, I always will look at the day chart too, just to kind of get centered on the price action and levels. Although the CSI indicator, because of this long length of 89, it's not going to be all that useful on the high time frame. As you can see, you're going to have, you know, the last time we had a signal was back in August of last year. When was the last time we had a signal on this pair using the 89 on the daily chart? Okay, so I'm just using the daily chart really just to look at levels. Does it make sense what, the direction that the 4 hour chart is giving me the signal? And, just again, just using market structure and, just overall price action. But the signals themselves taking off the 4 hour. Okay. So, this is one of my funded accounts, and you can see I've got 5 trades open. I know you can't see totally the bottom, but that's New Zealand Canadian at the bottom. So we've got Aussie New Zealand, which is in drawdown. We've got the Aussie dollar, the Swiss yen, the euro dollar in profit, and we've got the New Zealand Canadian in drawdown. So let's look at the two drawdown ones. That's Aussie Kiwi and Kiwi Canadian. Okay, so let's look at those two first. So here's Kiwi Canadian right here. Okay, and this one, what was I long on that? I'm assuming, yeah, long on that, short on Aussie Kiwi. Okay, so I was long on this, and you can see why I took the long. Basically, we had this crossover that happened yesterday. That's when I took this trade, and but you can see we've had the Canadian dollar strengthen today, which has caused some weakness uh, in this pair, and so now we've got them kind of both trending up, and that's why we're kind of seeing some weakness in the pair and really kind of like some sideways price action here on the 4 hour. So we'll see what happens. My stop loss is below this candle here. I may not hold it. I may just end up cutting this one loose. At some point today, if we don't get a rally tonight during the overnight, if this thing just continues to chop sideways or continue moving lower, I'll probably just shut that one down because I don't like the looks of the CSI indicator. The other one's Aussie Kiwi. This one I was short, right? Pretty much, yeah, short on Aussie Kiwi. And this one's still looking pretty bearish. So we've got the signal actually came in again yesterday, which is I believe when I entered that trade, and it was in profit for a while. And you can see, we had the diversion in the indicator that went on for a while. We've now kind of leveled out here, but to me this still looks pretty bearish just on the price action alone. But we could see a little bit more of a pullback. And see, I got in just kind of a bad fill, and getting pulled into some drawdown. Now, if the Aussie Kiwi goes down, then that should help the Kiwi Canadian go up. If it's the Kiwi that's driving it, right? If it's strength in the New Zealand, then we'll see at least a little bit of recovery in that New Zealand Canadian, but not if the Canadian dollar continues to strengthen too. So while they are correlated in the fact that they both have New Zealand dollar in the pair on the opposite side, it doesn't mean they're going to move in tandem because it's a currency pair. It's not one single currency. And so you have to just, kind of wait that out and see. But this one gives me a little bit more confidence to hold than the New Zealand Canadian. So if we look at a couple of other Canadian pairs, just speaking of the CAD, I'm not in this, but we'll just take a look at this. This, again, gives me a little bit of pause with the New Zealand Canadian because this is the CAD Swiss, which is trying to break higher. You can see a little bit of divergence in the indicator, and this has been trying to break higher, but you can see it's getting caught up on these highs right here. Multiple attempts to really break higher. And if we go out to the daily chart, we'll see here, we've been in sideways consolidating market in here really since October. So what was that, like 8 months? We've been basically inside of this, essentially right here has been our range since October. Okay, that's essentially been our range. You know, we had one little false breakout here. We had a little false breakout here. But for the most part, the market's been moving sideways. So is this like an accumulation period and eventually we're going to, smash and go higher? I don't know. The daily chart is still showing a bearish market on the CSI, but again, you can't put a lot of weight because it's just a long look back period for a daily chart. So can't put too much weight in that. The CAD yen is kind of the same way. Again, pretty much just moving sideways here since last month, for about a month now. This thing's just been fluctuating inside the range. It's kind of in the middle of the range, heading down again. It is a bearish signal here, but more neutral now, actually, with the yen strengthening and the Canadian also trying to strengthen. So don't really get a lot of help from these other CAD pairs. Let's just look at the Euro CAD. And again, this one looks, bullish to neutral on the 4-hour chart, right? We have the Euro moving up. The Canadian has kind of stabilized. Um, so we'll see what happens. And I think with the Canadian dollar, a lot of it has to do with what's going on in Iran. Obviously we don't have a resolution to that conflict yet. And there was a little flare up yesterday. And so the Canadian dollar is very much tied to the price of oil. And so as long as there's uncertainty with that, then the Canadian dollar probably still will be propped up. If we do finally get a resolution, real resolution to that conflict, and the Strait of Hormuz gets opened up again, and et cetera, then I think you'll see oil prices take a big tumble, and that will take the Canadian dollar down with it, at least temporarily. But we don't have that right now, and that's why you're seeing the CAD kind of move sideways, because there's just a lot of uncertainty in what it's doing. So I will make the decision about those two pairs, especially the Kiwi Canadian, probably tonight, whether I cut that one loose or not. So Aussie dollar, Swiss yen, we'll take a quick look at those. Aussie dollar down. You can see this probably will continue. We had a little weakness in the dollar today, but then it came back, and the Aussie continues to weaken, which also puts our Aussie New Zealand short still in perspective. We do have this kind of liquidity low right here. Price kind of ran into on the 4-hour chart. So we'll see. But overall, if we go out to the daily chart, I think this still looks pretty bearish despite this candle right here. This is a Sunday candle. This was a Sunday candle, so you can't always put a lot into that. So still pretty bearish in this market. Might see a bounce up, but I'll probably hold that one. And then Swiss yen. Looks like it will make at least one more run down. We do have these lows sitting down here. Look at all these wicks. My take profit is sitting right here at the body close of this candle. So another leg down would hit that. So I'm hoping it gets there. I'm not going to try to ride it through all these wicks. There's probably very little liquidity in here. So I'm going to be pretty conservative on the exit. If it gets anywhere close to this low around the 200 zone, which is a nice round number to target to, then that probably will do it for me. All right, so that's that one. What else? Euro dollar is the other one, which is going to look a lot like the Aussie USD right here. So look, like I said, it looks very much like the Aussie USD. This looks like it's in a pullback and probably will continue lower. On the daily chart, again, I think you certainly can target at least a new low down to maybe, somewhere. We see we got held up right here today, but I think that'll be taken. I think the next major lows are sitting back here. So I'm hoping it makes another push down to around 1150 or 11, no, not 1150, maybe 1147, somewhere down in there. All right, so we'll see what happens with that. the CSI is still looking pretty bearish. Okay. So those are the open positions right now. We'll see how those play out. And we did look at a couple of other CAD pairs. We'll just click through on a couple of random things. 4-hour chart. Let's just look for anything new. Okay, I'm not going to do any real big analysis on running things, but let's just look where there's. Okay, so we have a nice little potential sell signal here on New Zealand yen, and again, um, with the New Zealand Canadian long. Okay, that also again gives me pause on the New Zealand Canadian. So I'm leaning more towards probably going to close that New Zealand Canadian trade in a loss. It'll be a pretty decent loss, but that's okay. I'm not going to let it run to stop. And so this looks pretty bearish here, looking at the New Zealand yen right here. We had this corrective move up on the 4-hour. Okay, we got a swing high right here. We do have a bearish deflection right here where price, we had the initial sell right here, came back together on this correction, now seem to be diverting away. If this New Zealand line can continue to bend down a little bit, this looks pretty bearish. So that's that. And then it's the same thing on the New Zealand USD. There's no trade entry now, but we're still very much in a short bias there. Nothing on the dollar Canadian, nothing on dollar Swiss, nothing on dollar yen. Again, I'm just looking at the CSI. I'm not doing anything else with price action. And again, I'm using the 4-hour as my analysis time frame. Okay. Euro NZD, again, looking from the perspective of the New Zealand dollar, weakening. You can see this pair is trying to go up. And we did get a bullish signal on the CSI on this market. Actually, during the London session today, 5 a.m. candle, we had this little diversion away right here. So again, strengthens the case. I probably should cut that Kiwi CAD long position off. So I will take a look at it. We're just in market changeover right now. It's 5:30. I'm not going to close anything right now because the spreads are massive and it's just going to compound my loss. So I'll wait until probably at least 7 o'clock tonight when things kind of settle down. Maybe we'll get a little overnight bounce the opposite way and cut my loss down a little bit, but we'll see what happens. I don't know if there's any New Zealand news tonight. I'll have to look. All right, and then the last one I guess we'll take a look at is Euro Aussie. Again, no entry right here. The last one was a buy yesterday, but there's no entry there now. So, all right, so I think I'll just leave it there on Forex. I took a look at the open positions, and again, probably anything that has to do with buying the New Zealand dollar is probably not a good play at the moment. So, but it's the way it goes. But that Aussie New Zealand, um, I'll have to think about that one because the Aussie is weak too. So the Aussie New Zealand, I'm short on that. So, which is not good if the New Zealand also weakens, but if the Aussie weakens too, we'll just end up with a sideways market. So could be I end up closing both of those trades tonight. And if we get follow through, I might consider actually going short like on the New Zealand yen. So, all right. So anyways, guys, I will leave it there. I hope that was helpful. And any questions or comments, make sure you leave them down below. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Again, make your own trading decisions. This is nothing on here is trading advice. It's just me just talking out loud about my analysis on the market. But, if you have differing opinions on any of these, anything I covered, different analysis, different look at it, love to hear about it. There's all different ways to trade the market and, all different time frames. But if you have anything specific on what I covered today, make sure you leave it in the comments. Really appreciate it. Smash the like button, subscribe, and I will leave it there. Have a great night. I'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully I can make something a little bit earlier tomorrow instead of waiting until late in the day. I just really didn't have time today. I said I was gone most of the afternoon. So, all right. Have a good night. Talk to you all soon.